Good evening. Welcome to the workshop for the Mayor and City Council for the City of Taneytown for the month of August. We'll begin with our pledge of the flag. I'll ask Councilwoman Foster to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and thank you, Councilwoman. Let the records reflect that all council members are present and accounted for this evening. And we will begin with the review of the minutes. These are from the July 7th and July 12th regular meetings. I'll ask the council if they have any input, amendments, questions, concerns, general regards with the minutes as presented this evening.
I have a correction on the July 7th minutes under department report.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
The third bullet, that's the Department of Housing and Community Development.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other amendments requested?
That's it for that.
All right. With nothing else, they will be up for your approval on Monday evening as amended at that point. Next, we do have reception of a delegation. Mr. Wilson Bounds would like to present to us with a request regarding an annexation of a property on Harney Road. Mr. Bounds, if you'll step forward and have a seat at the delegation table. If you would pull your mic close to you, you do have to get somewhat close to it for it to be heard.
Just go.
You may go. Proceed.
I may go. I guess wanted to, I believe the soil annexation agreement is in the new business. I've had a couple meetings with Jim Wypricht and Brad to express the interest in having my property annexed in at the same time. Have expressed a concern that potentially the soil annexation would create an enclave around my property, and so that would make it make more sense to have it to go there. If everybody doesn't know which property it is, it's the old Dennis Harner and Mary Harner farm, sort of at the V of Harney Road and 140. It does touch 140 a couple ways along the way out. Across from FlowServe, and I guess doesn't touch Harney Road a lot there, except for across the new development where things are there. I think it's about 35 acres, and it makes sense there. That was the extent of it, just to make the request formal. Looks like Jim has put it up, I guess, and there's the property.
Right, so the purpose of annexation is you desire to future develop the property with some sort of housing, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and total shows on there just over 36 acres, is that correct to your?
There's
give or take?
Give or take.
Okay.
I don't know whether that included part of what was across the road there, that 36 notation, which is why I just said the 35.
Okay.
Because they included, part of what was carved off there. Part that's on the other side of Harney Road was originally part of this farm parcel.
The one on the corner of Westview and Harney?
Yeah, that kind of snakes in there, yes.
Right.
It's the portion of what's now Taneytown Crossing that's along the curve
Right.
of Harney and
labeled as Welker, is that correct? Or no? You're referring to all of those?
No.
I
not
see.
Welker.
Well, no, it looks like that's delineated separately as 1.6 acres, possibly over there. Anyway.
Yeah, question as to whether that 36 included it or didn't include it.
Right. So looking at this survey here, your property touches Harney Road, which I guess where the yellow house fronts Harney Road, is that correct?
Correct.
And then it also touches Taneytown Pike,
3 different spots.
3 different spots, kind of a narrow one and then 2 larger. Okay.
Correct.
Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Bounds as he sits?
Mr. Mayor, I mean, do we want to ask questions now, or do we want to wait until we get to the portion of the agenda that deals with the,
I think questions that are appropriate for Mr. Bounds should be asked now. We really need to consider the 2 annexations separate, considering how far along we are with the Soy annexation, but understanding that he does have the same interest and it could follow a very similar path.
Right.
Considering we're already looking at an agreement with them, and we're really just now hearing from Mr. Bounds at this point. So any questions for him and his plans and his property, I encourage you to ask at this point.
Mr. Bounds, I have a question. So let's say after annexation, how soon do you want to act on having the property developed into more housing?
I guess as soon as what makes sense. You know, I just bought the property the end of December, so it's new. And then still trying to develop a game plan as to what does make sense from
Okay.
from a residential standpoint, from a commercial standpoint. You know, have certainly debated some different ideas, but haven't come up with a formal plan.
Okay.
But I think it makes sense
Right.
to move along.
Okay. Not to press the issue, but do you have any rough timeline, so to speak,
I
in
don't.
terms of when you'd want to start that process?
I don't.
Okay.
And keep in mind, in the meetings that we have had, including Mr. Weaver, myself, and Mr. Bounds, we did discuss our sewer capacity issues that do prevent immediate development. But step 1 is getting into the city limits, as he knows. So that's kind of where we are at this point, is focusing on, do we want to add more property to the city, understanding the plan is development, but knowing that development right now cannot happen until we get our sewer capacity under control.
so this evening, are we looking for a general consensus that we're interested in pursuing the idea of an annexation, or we're looking specifically to go ahead and move forward with annexation proper?
I think along the same lines, what we've done in the past is we would direct staff to explore annexation with a property owner, and then they'll bring back to us whether an agreement or some sort of understanding with them of timelines and intentions and such.
So I guess maybe my question for you, Mr. Bounds, is along the lines of, if there is that degree of time in waiting before development could proceed, I mean, I guess the intention is just to make sure that the property is annexed for future residential development, not necessarily that you want this to proceed immediately, that you're okay with the fact that it may be 20 or 30 years before it happens.
No, not 20 or 30 years.
But realistically, I mean, there have been situations in the past where it has taken, you know, a significant amount of time for development to move forward. And given, you know, as the mayor just mentioned, that we have certain, you know, capacity concerns with our water and sewer, you know, there certainly is no guarantee about when or timeline for proceeding.
I guess I understand there's no guarantees in any process. But you know, I think it's good for the town of Taneytown to grow. I think the things that the town wants, so far as larger resources and larger things, needs larger population. And so I would certainly encourage the town to get the sewer capacity where it needs to be, to go and let the town become what it can be.
Well, I certainly appreciate that and respect that. So, I mean, again, so this evening we are looking for an acknowledgement as to whether or not we proceed in the same general consensus as before, have staff begin exploring the possibility or the process, I guess I should say.
If the council sees fit, they can direct staff to explore an annexation with Mr. Bounds.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
I'd be comfortable, you know, starting the process of annexation so long as doing so does not hinder the agreement that we already have in place with the Sewell annexation.
I think at this point, it's safe to say it won't be a hindrance because of the difference in time of where
Okay.
we are. We are far enough along in the Sewells. I don't think this will impact it. I think the Sewells happening will also help make this happen. If they were at the same time, it probably would have been a little bit easier then, but we're not going to hold up the Souls
Okay.
to add another one to it.
If that's the
Out of
case-
fairness to them and all the time put in by staff and such, I don't feel that we're able to do that, but I think we can still entertain this as well.
Yeah, then if that's the case, then I am full steam ahead. I'm in favor of.
I do want to bring up to the council as we talk about this development on that side of the city, which we're now seeing more interest in. There is always the concern with the intersection at Harney Road and West Baltimore, Taneytown Pike. So we need to consider going forward how that's going to be addressed. SHA will have to be a part of that conversation, and the developers as well will be a part of that when they do their traffic studies. Just keep in mind, that is a intersection of heavy conversation in the city. And as we look into more growth out there, that's going to be a topic you're going to have to keep in the front of your minds. Okay? Are there any more questions for Mr. Bounds before I ask you to take any action?
If we do have additional questions, what's the best way to be in touch with you, sir?
Email, phone calls, however you want to.
All right, thank you.
Okay? Anyone else? All right. Does the council wish to provide a consensus that staff explore annexation with Mr. Bounds on this property?
Yes.
Okay. We have that consensus. Staff will be in touch with you to start discussing how we're going to make that happen.
Okay.
All right. Any questions from you before you exit us?
No.
Very good. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you.
All right. I will now ask the council if they have any conflicts of interest on items on the agenda this evening. Does anything
sir.
give you heartburn?
No, sir.
Nope. All right, we shall move on. I'm going to ask the public if they have any comment pertaining to items not on the agenda this evening. This is your opportunity to speak to the council. I will ask that you do so in a timely manner, but you're welcome to come up front and introduce yourself.
I have two things I'd like to speak about. I think last month, the mayor said the state had given you some money, and you said, do you have any ideas how you'd like to have it spent? Well, I think a good thing to consider is a water park for the children and the residents here. Since I've been here, I haven't seen much done for a broad range of residents, and I think that would be a real good idea. And now the second thing is, I want to go back to this three-step plan to move Taneytown forward. Step one, we need to have a nonprofit foundation set up. This opens the door, the legal door, and says we're serious about moving Taneytown forward. And it makes possible step 2 and step 3. And places I would be willing to ask for money for Taneytown is the Ford Foundation and Howard Buffett and some local people. And I would ask them for more than peanuts. And I heard the man that runs the foundation on television, he said, we only give money to other foundations. So it sounds like it's kind of like a club. You get in the club when you're a nonprofit foundation. And I have no title or anything, but I'd be willing to write the letter or speak to them in person, but I would have to take a council member or someone with me who is connected to the council. And as for raising money, we would have to do something called POP, Protect Our Past, and number 3, part of the project would be to get the trucks out of Taneytown. I feel they're all possible. I'm going to keep nipping at your heels until you tell me to get lost. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Cook. Any other public comment for non-agenda items this evening? All right. Nothing more. We'll move into our agenda. For introduction, we have Ordinance 06-2021. This is a final budget amendment for fiscal year 2021. I'll ask the council if they have any discussion on this. Mr. Weeper, do you want to run us through any of this before we get too far in?
This one's pretty straightforward. In the general fund, we've received an increase of state income tax. We received more than we had budgeted, and it was a significant amount that warranted the amendment. So we've actually increased state income tax revenue by $200,000. We did see a decrease in highway user revenue money to the tune of $28,000. So we've decreased revenues there under streets. The net effect of those is that we had budgeted to pull monies from fund balance to balance the FY21 budget. And thanks to that increase in the state income tax revenue, we're able to reduce that pulling from fund balance by $172,000. We're also, we had intended to use $150,000 from the park impact fee or the open space fee in lieu money, and that was going to be going for the Roberts Mill Park improvements that were recently completed. Unfortunately, they were not completed. We didn't start work until FY22, so we're moving that $150,000 from basically decreasing the use of fund balance in FY21, and then we're going to make the adjustment in FY22. So we're really just carrying that money forward. And that's really the gist of the year-end amendment.
Okay. Any questions from the council on the final budget amendment for fiscal year 21? Okay. Regarding the state income tax, what year was that going off of, that increase? And do we expect to see a decrease for this year?
So we've been seeing increases, and we have increased our budget accordingly, because that was noted in during one of our audits that we seem to be consistently undershooting or underestimating the state income tax revenue. So we have been increasing that, trying to get the trend line in our budget to kind of match up, but we still underestimated. We just received far more this past year than was anticipated. Considering the potential effects of the pandemic, we didn't increase them significantly for FY22 because we were hearing, a lot of the concerns about the impact on income tax revenue for municipalities resulting from people being laid off and so on with COVID. We didn't rein it in too much, but we may end up adjusting down the road this year for state income tax again, because it may end up being higher than we projected again.
Okay, and at what point do we typically receive that number from the state? Is it going to be towards the end of our fiscal year?
I will have to check with the treasurer and see when the funds actually come in.
Okay.
So it's not, this isn't one that we get a number like the constant yield.
Right.
We're just kind of trying to follow the trend and hit the right target when we do the budget. I don't believe we get a projected number from the state.
Well, I just mean,
So, okay.
at what
Okay.
point do we receive that revenue that we
Okay.
know what
Okay.
it is?
I will follow up with the treasurer and get
Okay.
an update.
Very good. Questions from council on this amendment? All right. That'll be up for introduction Monday evening. Also coming up will be ordinance 07-2021. This is budget amendment number 1 for fiscal year '22. And again, Mr. Weeprick, if you want to run us through your knowledge.
All righty. Okay, we start up at the top here under general fund, parks revenue. We did not receive one of the grants Lorena applied for, I believe this was a Bollinger Park one, so we've decreased the revenue. We had projected revenue based on receiving the various grants that she had applied for. So this is one that we've already gotten the result back and we did not get. So we're decreasing the revenue on that side. The little farther down under the county revenue, as we talked about last month with the recently approved town-county agreement, we are going to get a greater grant, so to speak. The net is greater than last year based on that NPDES shift. So we're getting more money through that source, through that grant. Fund balance, we're decreasing fund balance because we had intended to use more out of general fund balance to fund some of the parks projects that were slated for FY22. We have since seen more income to the open space fee and the park impact fee. So with those funds coming in, we don't have to pull as much from fund balance. We can use the park reserve or the park savings to fund those park projects instead of taking it out of the general fund balance. So that's a decrease of $106,000 there. On the increase column, again, with the fund balance, with the use of the park fund balance. So we've had more revenue come into that fund so we can pull more out for the parks project. So basically it's just pulling more from the dedicated fund and not pulling as much from the general fund as we had originally budgeted. Farther down under the expenditures for the general fund, there's a number of economic development line items that are changed. Our economic development director was not with the city when the budget was developed and passed, so he had made some requests to modify his departmental budget. So he's looking to essentially increase dues and subscriptions. He's reduced donations by $1,000, increased dues and subscriptions by $2,000. He's enrolled in the International Economic Development Council and the Strong Towns organization. And we're going to shift $6,000 from postage that had been going for the Taneytown record, which going forward is going to be paid for through Main Street, since they're getting the benefit of the proceeds of that. So they're going to be paying the postage going forward. And then instead of putting that $6,000 towards postage, let's see, where are we here? Increase. Okay. That's basically just shifting from postage to Main Street.
Right.
Decreasing printing and marketing initiative to the tune of $2,500 and $3,500 for each of those lines. And he'd like to have $6,000 available in consulting engineering, and it's just there because we don't have a specific line item for this, but the idea would be, as he's applying for grant funding, there are some that are going to have match requirements, and he would like to have money available to put up as match money if we are awarded grants and we have to, do a 50-50 match or whatever percentage it is. He wants to have some money available that we can come up with our matching amount if any of his grant applications are successful, which I suspect they will be. Let's see. And travel, training, education, he has upped also. There's a economic development conference that he would like to attend this year. And lastly, for his department, advertising, Misha's come up with a kind of a business-to-business marketing campaign. And I guess I should rephrase that as also business to prospective business. So he's working on a campaign that will kind of market Taneytown to people considering opening a business. Why should you do business in Taneytown? And, he's shared the first essentially commercial, short video featuring Kim from Taneytown Dance Studio talking about, having a small business here in Taneytown and encouraging others to, consider Taneytown. So it's a different approach, I think, than what we've tried before. So hopefully we will have some success with that. But at any rate, that's the $7,600 under advertising for EDC. Moving down, the clerk. This one takes a little more explanation. We would like to reclass the position, move it down and over on our pay scale. That's why it's kind of an unusual number, dollar amount. It's to try to fit it into a specific square on our level and step chart. We participated in a classification and compensation study that the city of Brunswick was developing through a consultant. They've basically done what we've talked about doing off and on for several years, and we never fund or move forward with a study. Brunswick did, and as in exchange for our participation, the consultant shared the results of the study with us. They looked at a number of municipalities across the state, primarily between the 5,000 and 10,000 population range. And while the majority of our positions were comparable with the market, so to speak, we saw that the city clerk position was far below basically anything else in that range. And I felt it was early enough in the budget year that we could do a reclass and put the clerk's salary somewhere more comparable to what others that have those same responsibilities are earning. Not to mention that here, Clara also is our HR, our human resources person. And her salary kind of falls well short of even the bottom end of the range, so we need to correct that. So that's what that line item is about. And the last couple things, parks, we just talked a couple minutes ago about moving the Roberts Mill Park project from FY21 to FY22. That's the $148,494. That's there under capital projects. And let's see. Oh, wait, let me back up here. Okay, so under parks in the increase column, we've got $192,360. So Roberts Mill Park, some of you are aware that once the pond level was lowered and work started, the level of erosion was noted to go farther than, or the erosion was worse than envisioned or expected once we lowered the water level. So while the contractor was on site, had everything mobilized, and we could do this under the same grading permit and erosion and sediment control plan, we extended the riprap farther around the pond bank. So that did cost us extra money, and that's why we're now looking at $192,360. But we had the opportunity while the contractor was there to just get it done, not spend duplicate money to get a new erosion and sediment control plan and grading plan approved and go back to our engineer again. So we decided to pull the trigger and do it. And so the riprap extends quite a bit farther around the pond than was originally in the project scope. But we felt it was necessary to do it to avoid having to go back in several years from now and dewater the pond again and possibly end up destroying parts of the new trail or the new walking path. So that's why that figure is up above what the bid was. But that's, hopefully that's a pretty good summary of the FY22 amendment. If anybody has questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
All right. Does anyone from council have questions on any of these topics? I know there's quite a number of numbers here. Questions, concerns, or anything regarding these items?
And if anything comes up, please feel free to email me or give me a call between now and the Monday meeting. So.
Very good. I think overall it's a very positive thing for us. It's the additional money for economic development. He's making great strides in that position. I think it makes sense to increase his budget a little bit to make some of those things happen. For the city clerk, we can't say enough about the work that she does here as clerk and as HR. And it makes complete sense to me that that position should be higher than what it really is. So I see no issue there. And regarding parks, they came to me with the issue regarding the riprap not being in the appropriate places once they dewatered, and I gave them the instructions to go forward with it, as opposed to in 2 years coming back and having spent another $150,000 to do it. We could spend $40,000 today and get it done while it's there. So minimal impact, minimum length of time that the park had to be closed for it, and in the long run, it's better. I think it looks amazing. We've gotten some great comments from the public. My hope is that children don't feel the need to throw the rocks into the pond. That would be great. If you see children doing it, do whatever is necessary to stop them. Questions from council? Are you satisfied with this budget amendment as presented this evening?
Judy, do you want to briefly mention that we were over at the pond? Or do you want me to?
You can if you want to.
Well, no, I think it was important that we went ahead and continued that riprap at the pond. I was over there this past week with Councilwoman Fuller. Lorena showed us around, and we got to meet the crews that were working on the construction. And when you see it on the ground, it just makes sense. It just makes absolute sense, and I think that it's, it's important that we did that, like you said, rather than doing it and waiting 2 years.
Right. All right, well, that will be up for introduction as well Monday evening, and we will move right along. Up for adoption on Monday will be Resolution 2021-12, the appointment of the zoning administrator. If you recall from a month ago, roughly, we appointed Mr. Darrell Hale as our zoning administrator, which then, of course, left the vacancy for Councilman Hand to join us. This resolution simply makes that official. Are there any questions on this? It'll be a pretty cut and dry. If you have questions now, you're really too late because we've already made the appointment and we're already paying him to do the job.
I was going to say this is a little after the fact.
Yeah, that's, it's how you have to operate sometimes, right?
Formality to designate that title as well, because I was the last one who was designated, and we need to assign a new name to the
Yeah,
title.
when I saw this, I said, didn't we do this?
Wants his name off of that as quickly as possible. Sure. Do you sleep better at night now?
I'm getting home at night. No, yes, it's been wonderful to have somebody there, and Darrell's he's coming up to speed. The last couple weeks, he's really kind of starting to hit his stride. After the initial learning curve of the first couple weeks, so it's really starting to pick up now. So he's
Right.
become more independent, and he's going he's knocking out a lot of the code enforcement cases that have been stacking up for a long time, and
Yeah.
many of those it's just a matter of updating the database.
Right.
But we have somebody who can do that. We have somebody who has time and focus to be able to do that. So you'll see code enforcement case numbers dropping dramatically over the next month or two, I'm sure, as he
Very
addresses
good.
that backlog. So, and I've jokingly advised him, all you need to do to not have, more cases, not, get logged in is just, don't set foot outside that door.
Right.
And, because every time you do, you're going to come back with 5 new cases.
Right.
So, but hopefully, once folks realize that somebody's out there looking and, we're being more active with the code enforcement, hopefully we'll see improvement on compliance in general. But it'll take a while, but he's really making progress there.
He seems to be doing quite well from what I observe. I've spoken to him. He's still in the honeymoon period. He says he loves it. We'll give him some time. But on that note, Ms. Weeprick, we can't go without saying just how much we appreciate all the time you put into doing essentially 3 jobs at once for such a long period of time. And I know you were with me when we were trying to fill that position for a very long time. I'm glad it finally got done, and I'm glad you could focus better on being the city manager.
Yep. Looking forward to it.
Resolution 2021-13. This is the water allocation, our monthly water allocation. This is for August 2021. Any questions from the council on the allocations? All right. And lastly, up for adoption Monday evening will be Resolution 2021-14. These are rules for the various city parks put together by our Parks and Rec Director. Are there any questions from the council? As you can see, it's laid out park by park, even spells out the skate park separately, delineating park hours, pets, no alcoholic beverages. Just be nice to people and don't dig up our parks without our permission.
I have one question. As I was reading the rules for the individual park, I noticed that the skate park is the only one that address, how I want to say it, bodily injuries kind of thing.
Address what, I'm sorry.
In other words, we're not responsible if, you know, you kill yourself at the skate park.
I see, okay, a liability.
Liability.
Okay.
I was just wondering, do we want to stick that in each park? Should we?
I think it would be appropriate to do so.
Just a blanket
Just a
park use,
general liability,
enjoy our parks at
you
your own
know,
risk
so that
kind of a
people
thing.
don't
A
sue
little-
us for
a little
tripping
nicer
over
than
the
that, but-
trash cans or something.
Right.
Okay.
Assuming that whatever happens to them is not a result of our bad, we'll say.
Okay.
If we have faulty equipment, that's one thing. If Johnny falls off a slide wrong and breaks his arm, that's really not on us.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate to have that added in.
Okay.
That's all. That's the only question I have.
I had one
And,
other.
no,
Oh,
go ahead.
you
No,
want me to
please go ahead.
The only other one, and Jim, I did talk to Lorena kind of about this one, was for the Memorial Park. There's the section that says that the grills are provided for food preparation and that campfires are not allowed. I know that there are some events where the people come in and they bring their own larger smokers, et cetera. So she thought maybe we could stick something in there about unless authorized kind of thing.
Well, we get back to that, what's a campfire, what's an
Well,
open burn, what's a this, what's a that.
right, well, and that's what I'm just saying is as far as I know, we've had an event where somebody came in and did the smoked turkey legs,
Right.
which he could never do that on the grills that are provided because he's doing it for 100 people. So we wanted to make sure that there wasn't a thing that says, well, you're not supposed to bring that here, that says right here in your,
Well,
Would that be something that
it doesn't
they
say
have
you
to put
can't.
in their, you know, application when they ask for?
So your permit just gives you an exemption,
Yeah.
so to speak.
I think that if you wanted to allow recreational fires or campfires, you know, in a limited fashion, you could simply do so by, you know, that campfires are authorized by written permission only.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
then if we did have a special event, if we,
because
you know,
we've done
had
the reenactments
somebody.
in the past. Or we've
And
done
and
other
that's something
things.
Lorena and I did talk about, is that, you know, in the past, we've had encampments and, you know, reenactors, you know, spend the night at the park and have campfires. We've had Boy Scout troop, you know, camp out down in the undeveloped part of the park. And, you know, I think we consider on a case-by-case basis, but I would suggest that permission be in writing in the event someone may call the police at, you know, in the evening because there's a fire down at the park, that the person will, you know, not just say, oh, I talked to the parks director, or, oh, I talked to the city manager, that it, you know, gives them something to, you know, show a responding officer that, you know, this is legit, we got the city's permission.
I think specify that in some way fire outside of the provided grills will be permitted by permit. We should also specify that we may restrict the use of grills or outside fire. For example, if there's a burn ban. You know, these are charcoal grills, a spark can light up at some of the grass around it, and that should be at all the parks we provide grills. I think Roberts Mill has them, Memorial has them. Just make sure something there that we can restrict the use of those for the safety of the park.
We will come up with some language and circulate it.
Perfect, okay.
And then,
Mayor
thank you,
Pro
Mr.
Tem, yes?
Actually, very similar to what Councilwoman Foster was talking about. Under the skate park rules, there is a line in there about destruction or defacing of public property is going to be prosecuted, and I'd kind of like to see that with the rules for all the parks. I mean, we've had a number of incidents over the summer at various parks, and I think it's important that, you know, we make it very apparent that we are going to pursue this. I mean, this is public property, this is for the good of the public, and, you know, we do not want to see it defaced or destroyed, or we're going to prosecute it, so.
I think it is safe to put that for all parks, that what you say is a number of instances, I say it's a rash of vandalism. I mean, we've had some serious issues this summer with
Right.
vandalism in all of our parks. Just hearing stories of what's being viewed on the new cameras at THS Park, it's,
Right. And
Yeah.
you're right, it's not, you know, it's not just simple, like, you know, I don't want to say simple, but, you know, egging something. I mean, cutting chains on swings and things, you know, it's serious stuff, and it's costly.
right, so we should add that to all of the parks, that, you know, just take care of our parks, that's all we ask. It's there for your pleasure, for your enjoyment, just take care of it. Otherwise, we won't give them anymore. We could save money and put it somewhere else.
That's all for me, Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions? All right, we have those amendments put to staff, and we'll see something from them a little bit later. That's all for our resolutions. So we'll go to Mr. Weepick for your city manager report.
So not much as far as the list of the usual projects. Construction is ongoing at the Terranian Terrace Stormwater Retrofit Project. The work there is starting out. It's focused at the culvert crossings at Kings Drive between the elementary school and the middle school. So that's where the bulk of the activity is going on right now. So no big hole in the ground just yet. Not something that's on the usual quick look report, but I did want to share a couple things. The county has received the draft next generation NPDES, that is National Pollutant Elimination Discharge System permit, that we've been talking about for a couple years now, because we've been on an extended permit now for 2 years since it expired. And there's a number of issues that we have with the draft permit. It appears that they have essentially left a lot of the language from the large jurisdiction permits in our medium jurisdiction Carroll County permit. So the county has, the Land and Resource Management has drafted a response to MDE, asking them to remove some of these large jurisdiction requirements. And you know, some of the things, for example, there's one that we've been talking about in the Water Resources Coordination Council for quite a while, and that is there's a litter and floatables component in the large jurisdictions, saying that they have to make certain efforts and quantify how they're addressing litter in bodies of water. We don't really have that kind of an issue here in Carroll County. Not that, you know, not that litter doesn't get blown and end up in water courses and, you know, low-lying areas and then gets picked up when the floodwaters come through, but not to the extent that a really large jurisdiction does. So we're trying to get that whole section removed. And there's also some, I guess, disconnects between the reporting systems that we're required to use and what the draft permit is asking us to report, that they're basically asking us to report on things that we can't plug into the system they're telling us to use. So we would like automatically be out of compliance. So there's a number of issues with the draft permit. It will probably be some months before it becomes finalized, but I believe the target is for it to be final in this year in the fall. So that'll be, I'm sure, coming back to us in the next couple months. Another thing that is a potential new project, the Director of Public Works and I have fielded some calls from a resident on Fairview Avenue on the corner of Fairview and Riffles Lane. There's a storm drain inlet adjacent to Riffles Lane that has been backing up and apparently has been getting worse over time. I went out to take a look at it. The timing was perfect. I walked over the hill, and as soon as I, crested the hill and started down, the skies darkened and the skies let loose. So I got to see firsthand how it does indeed back up. And the homeowner contacted the plumber, tried to get it clear. The line apparently goes underneath their garage, but they located the line on the other side, and after doing some investigation, it appears that there is an old line of a hodgepodge of materials that goes from Riffles Lane to a storm drain inlet at the corner of Route 194 and Fairview Avenue. So it crosses 7 properties that we can tell, if assuming it, of course, is a straight line. We spotted where we believe the line daylights briefly and then goes under a driveway at a York Street property, just a couple houses up from Fairview. We couldn't get a camera through to confirm that way, but we were able to pour dye down where the line goes under the driveway, and the dye did come out in one of the inlets by Fairview Avenue and 194. So I've kind of posed some questions to State Highway Administration. First off, if they can clean that basin because it appears to be clogged, and if the water is making it that far, that may be causing the backup. But the line is a combination of basically corrugated black plastic pipe like you might put on your downspouts or something, and I think it's a 6-inch diameter PVC pipe. So while it does not look like something we would have done, at least not the way we would do it now, I understand that many years ago, DPW may have put together a line with whatever materials they might have had on hand and done things with a handshake with the property owners. So we haven't located any easements for crossing any of these properties. And meanwhile, the property owner is eager to see the situation resolved because it's causing issues. Their garage is immediately adjacent to this drain, and the water level's getting higher and higher. So I did touch base with CDM Smith just to try to get a ballpark engineering estimate, and they suggested that we look at, we're using $150 a linear foot for our Meadowbrook Interceptor project for the sections of pipe that need to be replaced. This would not be as deep or as large of a pipe, but it's also going to be a brand new trench. So our engineer felt like that was a reasonable figure. So we're probably looking just in construction cost at about a $49,000 project without any engineering or surveying or legal work to get the easements. So I want to kind of get that on your radar screen. I do need to talk with the city attorney a bit more about any ability we may have to do work, but I would certainly prefer to work with all the property owners, try to obtain the necessary easements, and just add this to our list of capital projects. And as we know, we are able to do stormwater projects with our ARPA money. So this may be something we can target for that because it's kind of an unexpected project. You know, this was not on our radar screen for stormwater management. The inlet is on our storm drain index map, but just with a little stub that somebody could probably look down the drain and see where the line, what direction the line went out of the box. But we had no idea where it went, and now we think we do. But again, we only budgeted $20,000 in stormwater maintenance and repairs because, you know, usually that's inlet cleaning and, you know, some, you know, where we have the old brick inlets, you know, we may need to point them or relay bricks or things like that. Usually anything much bigger than that would be a capital project. And this particular situation certainly looks like it's going to be another capital project for us. So the fact that it does tie into the state highway system, I think that makes it appear that it is a legitimate storm drain and inlet that is part of the overall city network. It's unfortunate that we can't find any documentation showing we have an easement across those people's backyards, but we have no idea how long the line has been there. There's apparently fragments of terracotta along it, so it's probably got some age to it. So,
Can I ask you a question real quick?
yes.
Just out of curiosity, if we do have a problem with any of those property owners, is the potential there to redirect that line at all?
Yes.
Yes.
It's there.
Okay.
Going across unpaved yards, though, would certainly be the most
Oh, I'm sure,
cost-effective.
yeah.
But yes, we could consider an alternative of, and the issue basically is that there's a stretch of Riffles Lane between Roberts Mill Road, or between Mater Alley and Fairview, that is a little bit of a, there's a slope coming away from Fairview towards Mater, and then there's a larger hill coming from Mater towards Fairview, so it kind of meets in a V shape. It's not, it's a modest V, but the water is still running towards this inlet from two different directions, so in order for us to convey the water from that inlet location somewhere farther downhill, it's either going to have to cross people's backyards, or we're going to have to tear up Riffles Lane and then incur the cost of paving and excavating in the roadway, and also crossing Fairview. There are no storm drain inlets in Fairview until you get down to, I think there's one down by Middle Street and one and then two at 194, but there's really nothing in mid-block that we could tie into, so it would have to basically cross Fairview, or we would have to tear up Fairview to get it down to 194. And we're really not sure yet how State Highway is going to look at things. We would like to look at it as an existing connection. State Highway does not have record of any such connection, and yet the water with the dye showed up in that inlet, so that's where it's going. So more on that in the coming months, but just wanted to get it on your radar screen for now. And that's about it for me this evening.
All right, questions from council on the city manager report or the departmental reports as they're presented to you this evening?
Jim, on the Public Works report, you say that, Kevin says that the water meter MXUs are on back order.
We've,
I mean, do we have our order in on back order, or are we just waiting for them to say we have?
no, we have an order in, and let me just pull this up to make sure I speak correctly. I believe we have received, since the report came out, I believe we have received a shipment of the MXUs.
Oh, good.
So we were very nervous about that, and we actually did we did some use and occupancy inspections without having MXUs to install.
Right.
And we made sure that the builder and potential buyers were aware that we would need access to get in there and install the MXUs when they were received, or that the homeowner could provide a meter reading for us and we would explain how to do that to them, or they could set up a time that we could come in and read the meter. Fortunately, we only had a handful of those before the shipment came in, so we can go play catch up on those now. So
Yeah, I just didn't want us to get lost in the back order thing.
yes. And while we're talking about MXUs, this has been a while since it came up, but we talked a while back about the number of no reads on the water billing, and I did want to point out that we get basically a low battery indication also, and we include those in the number of MXUs that need to be replaced. So that number is actually a little bit inflated from the actual no reads. Those are all the ones that we know we need to get out and take care of.
Okay.
All right, any other questions from the council? All right, we do not have our city attorney here, so I do not have a report from him. Nothing listed under old business. We'll move into our new business. The monthly financial report is presented to you in your packet. Are there any questions from council on the monthly financials? All right, that will be up for your approval Monday evening, as will our next accounts payables. Questions from the council? All right. Next, we have the Sewell Annexation Agreement. And Mr. Weeprek, you've been with us from the beginning, so take a drink of water and talk some more.
Just a minute to scroll down far enough to get to it here.
Page 68.
Thank you.
See, Joe, that's why we like paper.
That's why we got paper.
Okay, just rub it in, sure, okay. Okay, so as we've talked about in previous months, we really kind of scaled things back to do things one step at a time, starting with this annexation agreement. So in here, we are going through all the usual definitions, explaining, where the property is, how big it is. The annexation plat shows where it's contiguous to the city. The idea is that the property would come in as R10,000. It is on the comprehensive plan as R20,000, meaning a larger lot and smaller lot yield for the property, which would then trigger the need for a zoning waiver from Carroll County in order to develop the property at the higher density. If there is not a waiver, the property needs to sit for 5 years before it can be developed at the higher density. But in the agreement, we've specified that the owner's aware of that, and they're not going to seek building permits until either the 5 years pass or they get the necessary waiver for that 5-year rule. So everybody's aware that that would apply because we are potentially bringing the property in at a higher zoning density than was on the comprehensive plan. The intent is to develop not more than 340 single-family dwelling units that would be roughly 85 semi-detached, 170 units, and 170 single-family detached units. So basically half duplexes or semi-detached and half single-family detached. We acknowledge in here that it does appear the property would be eligible for community village designation, which is what would authorize them to do those semi-detached dwellings, and would be, of course, subject to the adequate public facilities ordinance. And essentially, we're not promising anything other than to do what we can. That we're promising we will pursue the water and sewer master plan amendment that would be necessary because the property is now in the long-range planning category. So we would need to move that up to a priority service area on the water and sewer master plan. You may recall we went through some gymnastics to do that with Taneytown Crossing project because that conglomeration of parcels, some were in the right area, some were in the long-range area, and we went through that exercise through Carroll County with the Department of the Environment to get everything put into the priority or final planning area for the water and sewer master plan before anybody could sign building permits. So the same thing would apply here, but we're not going to be under the gun like we were with Taneytown Crossing. So again, we're agreeing that we will cooperate and do what we can do to pursue that amendment. But again, not promising that it will get approved. So basically, it's the owner is going to pay all the costs, as is typical with the annexation, and they have expressed interest in a development rights and responsibilities agreement, and that again is in the agreement that that it'll have to follow all the normal processes, that we can't promise that it will be approved, but we are agreeing that we will go down that path with them, following all the normal improvements. Same thing, public improvements. Basically, the agreement's just stating that, that as they develop, they're going to be responsible for the same things any other developer is. So it's very, very basic. The only real specifics are the zoning designation and the number of units that we talked about a minute ago. So it's very straightforward. We're not tying this to any specific concept plan, just the R10 residential development, 300 and, did I say 40 units?
340, yes.
So, And that's essentially it. So, and if the agreement's approved, we move on to the next step.
Okay. Council, do you have any questions? You've kind of seen this coming down the road for a little bit, so hopefully you had some time to read it. My personal opinion, I find it satisfactory for the city.
It is,
Councilwoman?
it's fine. I just picked up a couple of little places where words were dropped or need to be changed on number 8 under Collector Road. The third line from the bottom where it says said Collector Road shall, it should be shall be constructed. Do you see that? And then on,
No,
These
and
eight-
in the definition section, we know we do have a question mark where there should be an acreage number, so we'll get that revised for Monday also.
Okay.
okay, my page is not numbered, but I'm on number 14
Mhm.
under non-comprehensive agreement. The 1, 2, 3, I guess the fourth line where it says herein are no further force and effect to the extent.
Thank you.
That's all I saw. Other than that, it's fine.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilwoman. Any other questions?
I think I have two brief questions and maybe one general comment, if I might.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
And correct me if anybody knows, I'm not aware of any other property that we've annexed that is slated for development. Is that correct? There's nothing else that's coming down the road. I mean, Meads Crossing is where, is, you know, the furthest we've gone with development at this point. There's no other land that's been annexed that's proposed to be developed.
There is.
There is? Okay.
There's Mountain
Brook
Mountain Brook
Farms,
Farms.
we've had some individuals contact the city expressing interest in that parcel. That's a little over 100 acres. That's already within the city.
Okay.
You know, it was annexed many years ago.
and has already been approved as community village as well.
Yes. Yes, that project had moved forward it had a concept plan that went before the Planning Commission. I don't recall if the concept was approved or not, but that's about as far as it got. And at that point, we were having some water issues with our recharge and our consent agreement with MDE that kind of derailed that project.
So that's kind of in hiatus, like it's not actually in process right now.
It's not,
So to
right,
speak.
It's in a
Right.
limbo at this
Okay.
point. It started a process. It kind of went into limbo. They've kind of started having discussions again.
Okay.
right.
And my second question is for the Sewell annexation, why are they interested in increasing the density to the level of 340? I mean, why is it that they want to build more houses than was originally anticipated?
Because they make more money. I mean, that's really the long and short of it, is more houses equals more money. Same way Meads Crossing was. That's the reason people do community village, because they can pack them in and make more.
Okay.
And while there certainly may be a market for larger lots, larger houses, as I know some folks have wanted to see in the past, we also need to keep in mind that with the higher density, we have less infrastructure to maintain, you know, for that same tax base increase. So, you know, if we have, you know, 2 houses for every, or maybe even, well, probably not 3, but say 2 houses for every 100 feet of water, sewer, and road, rather than 1 house for every 100 feet, you know, our ratio of revenue to expense to maintain that is better. So from a budgetary standpoint and a, you know, infrastructure maintenance standpoint, that density is better for us than the R20 designation would be. So we get more homes. Now, that's also more impact to water and sewer for a smaller amount of acreage, but then we're not maintaining the same amount of water, sewer, roads, and stormwater as we would for an R20 development where the lots are 20,000 square feet instead of 10,000. And then also with Community Village, as the mayor indicated, they can reduce lot sizes and get a density bonus in exchange for certain amenities in the community and the design aspects that we look at.
See, and I was just curious because I didn't know whether or not it had to do with, concept of the plan of what was supposed to go out there. I mean, I certainly understand the, the financial aspect of it, but I'm glad that there are other considerations that are being, taken into account. And then I guess, so for my general comment about this, I am comfortable with this. I mean, everybody knows I'm always cautious about new development, especially as it comes to whether or not our infrastructure can handle that, new development. So I'm glad to see that the agreement itself is very flexible and lenient and doesn't make any concrete promises about what will or will not be done outside of the realm of saying, okay, we are willing to look at this. So I'm very appreciative of that.
All right, any other input from council, questions? All right, if nothing else, that will be up for your approval with the appropriate corrections made, as pointed out this evening. Next, we have the Catholic Charities lease renewal. Excuse me. All right, Ms. Weepicker, we're not making any changes to the lease, is that correct?
Nope, same conditions as previous years.
Everything stays the same. Any questions on this lease? For those who are new to this, this lease goes to the structure at Roberts Mill Park that we provide a friendly lease to Catholic Charities to run a Head Start program. It's only changed a little bit over the years, but for the most part, it's been very fair for them. Any questions?
Just a slight comment, actually, in keeping in the spirit of Councilwoman Foster, on the third page, third paragraph, it talks about the American with Disability Act. I think that there is a spelling mistake with that.
Which number are we looking at?
Well, it's page 3, and it's the third.
So you're under number
I'm
11
sorry,
there?
number 11.
Thank you.
I apologize.
That's okay. I'd really love to have all the lines numbered. That would be ideal.
The paragraph that begins, lessee specifically agrees it shall be.
Okay.
What's the,
Oh, right there. American.
I'm not reading far enough down. Okay.
It's the last sentence of that paragraph.
Okay, so Americans, just need to pluralize American on that.
I didn't know whether or not that mattered, but I figured I should at least point it out.
Okay. Any other questions of content or grammatical? Okay, that will be up for your approval. Up next, we have Trinity Church Parking Lot License Agreement. If you recall, this was brought to you sort of a cost sharing for the city and Trinity Church for us to be able to use their parking lot. They ask that we stick to an agreement from the 1950s that we would share in cost of maintenance. So this was drafted and presented to you. Do we have any questions from the council? Anything that concerns you?
Just a real quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Where are we on the signage as far as for public parking?
We have not, we may have the P signs in stock, I'm not sure, but we have not moved forward with that because we don't have the agreement in place yet.
I was just curious if, yeah. Okay.
And I would like to point out that we've shared the draft with representatives of Trinity, and we've kind of gone back and forth with some questions and answers. They were hoping that we would spell out our contribution a little bit more specifically. Now, we did move a month or two ago to reimburse the church for half of the cost of the crack ceiling overlay and restriping. So that's in the minutes already. But they're concerned that the 10-year period may exceed the lifespan of the current seal and crack repair, and that they may need to do more maintenance that they might need help with before the 10-year period. I responded to those concerns that the agreement does not eliminate the possibility of coming back to council to discuss, needs in the future during that 10 years.
Right.
It simply enables the parking for 10 years.
Right.
It doesn't define a specific contribution, just that we want to help them with improvements, and in exchange, that the public benefit is that there's the public parking use. So with that said, the possibility exists that, 7 or 8 years from now, they may be coming back to do a similar project. But again, I expressed that we are concerned about creating an obligation for something we don't own for an unknown dollar amount to agree to something in advance, that it's kind of like writing a blank check. If we say we will pay for 50% of the parking lot maintenance for the next 10 years, we don't know what that'll be. And they don't either. Their concern is just they want the opportunity to be able to come back and ask for help if something comes up before the 10 years is up.
Right.
And,
And I think you spoke correctly. I see nothing that would prevent them from doing so.
Right, and again, we can also, if the agreement, if both parties feel like the agreement needs to be modified, we of course have that option, as we do with most of our agreements. If both parties agree that we need to update it or amend it in some way, we have that opportunity. So with all that said, the church is, they were hoping for some more specific contribution from the city to be defined in there, but generally they're comfortable with it, and it sounds like their council president is willing to sign off on it.
Questions, comments, concerns? I would like to keep the party going with a grammatical. Under number 1, grant of license, the second sentence, this license shall be non-exclusive and shall grant no additional rights other than that the use for public parking. I say other than the use for public parking? Something, you see
Other
where I'm
than
talking
that,
about?
Of
Yeah.
the use for public parking, I believe.
Other,
Yes.
no additional rights other than the use, I would think,
Okay.
as opposed to that.
Okay.
All right, so far half people up here have pointed out grammatical mistakes. The 3 of you else, let's pick it up, start hammering the grammar. No, any other questions from council on this agreement?
I just spotted one that we'll also take care of. So the address that shows up for the church in the tax rolls is 38 West Baltimore, and that's actually the church office. And we updated it in the recitals, but now I'm seeing that we missed one there in number 1, that it still has the 38 instead of 32 West Baltimore. So we'll take care of that as well.
Okay.
Well, at least none of us has to go to remedial English.
That's true.
Well, at least some of us.
All right, any other questions, concerns? That will be up for your approval Monday evening. Next, we have an MOU, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System, NPDES.
Okay, and just a quick clarification on that, it's actually a memorandum of agreement. This is the update we talked about, or I talked about, I guess, a bit last month. The Water Resources Coordination Council did review the draft. They did not make any last-minute changes in our meeting this month, so the draft is the same as we talked about, I guess, last month, maybe the month before.
Yep.
So it's been, I've realized it still says draft in your packet, but that this is the version that will be circulated for signatures. The Water Resources Coordination Council, who is basically the group that's going to work to coordinate everything across the municipalities and the county for these projects, for these stormwater retrofit projects required under the permit, unanimously approved the agreement at our meeting this month, so we're ready for you guys to vote on it now.
Very good. So council has seen this. I believe it was acceptable then. Any questions? Has your mind changed since then?
No, I mean, personally, I still like this. I just have one, I guess you could call it a follow-up question. We talked about the salt management plan, I think it was, or salt. I forget exactly what it was called, but it had to deal with the salt in the city. And you were, or not you, but I think you had mentioned that we were prepared to accommodate that. And I just want to make sure that we're
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that is, Public Works is aware of that, and they have the means to do at least the basic reporting and plan. It may not be as sophisticated as some other municipalities may be doing, but you know, where they may be actually putting trucks on a scale, we know that the bucket from the loader holds X tons of salt, and that we put so many buckets in each truckload, and the truck comes back empty. So we basically, you know, it may not be as high-tech as some other
Do it the
municipalities,
old-fashioned
but
way.
we'll get it done.
being old-fashioned.
So,
Thank you very much, Jim.
All right, any additional questions? All right, hearing none, that will be up for your approval finally on Monday evening. And lastly, a last-minute addition to the packet this evening is a special event permit application for the Special Olympics of Maryland and Carroll County, requesting use of Memorial Park to hold their event. It has already been checked over and approved by DPW as well as the police department. Lorena finds it satisfactory as well, so therefore I'll ask the council if you have any questions on this permit. This runs the dates of August 11th through August 14th. Okay, hearing no discussion, that will be up for your approval on Monday evening. With that, I will open it up to the public. If you have any comment on agenda items this evening, anything we've discussed, you're welcome to bring up and talk at us about.
I have additional remarks to make about a nonprofit foundation. I talked to you, the city attorney, Jay, about this. He said he has set up 3 of them, and if it's only for small amounts, like 2,000 to about, he didn't give me a number, but I'll say 8,000, there was little or no cost. Now, the next question I would ask him, or you might want to ask him, if Taneytown should run across a large amount of money, could that be switched over to a new foundation that you could have a large amount of money, like for instance, $500,000. So I just wanted to add that he's aware that I'm scoping out this thing of nonprofit foundations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comment this evening on agenda items? Okay, before I call for a motion to adjourn, I do want to ask Mr. Wieprick, Parks and Rec, did they want a decision tonight on this event permit, considering it's set to start in 1 week? Or is it okay waiting until Monday?
we can wait until Monday.
We can wait until Monday, very good.
If I'm assuming that we'll be looking at a positive result since no one expressed any concerns. So
Right.
hopefully we can give them the idea that no one expressed concerns. We'll let you know for sure Monday.
I mean, would it be out of order to go ahead and do it this evening, just so that they have the reassurance that they're okay to proceed? Because I'm sure they've got to be in the planning stages at this point.
I would assume they're past the planning stages at this point.
Well, preparatory phase maybe is a better way of putting it. That, you know, they want to, I would guess that they would want the reassurance that they're set to go ahead well before the event occurs. And if council's amenable to it, I'd be okay with approving this tonight, if that's acceptable.
I'm okay with that. If you would like to make a motion, please do so.
I'll make a motion that we approve the special events permit for Special Olympics.
Very good. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Very good. I have a motion from Mayor Pro Tem Vigliotti, a second from Councilman Hand. Is there any discussion from the rest of council? All right, hearing none. All in favor of approving the special event permit for Special Olympics of Maryland signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Very good. And with that as our last order of business.
I did find a typo.
All right, you made it just under the wire. Councilman Hand, hit me with your best shot.
Page 21, Resolution Roth Avenue Park Rules, metal detecting. Authorization from the city. It's missing a Y. Thank you very much. I don't know what sit is. And I did see a WHCH somewhere else, but I could not find it for the life of me. So I'll get back to you. There's an I missing from a witch somewhere.
You had to find it first, Clara.
So now the only outstanding member of this board who has not had anything to contribute.
Oh, let's not make this uncomfortable.
With that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening.
So moved.
And very good. We have motion from Councilwoman Foster, second from Councilwoman Fuller. All in favor of adjourning for the evening signify by saying aye.
All right.
Anyone opposed? Have a great night.